What's up, my beer brewers? Maine-iac here with the initial power rankings for the 2017 NFL season. Heading into week 4, we are doing our first initial. Wanted to get a first impression on how new players are doing and rookies, and I haven't done this before, so I was trying to figure out the format for the last couple of weeks, and this is the best I can come up with. If you have any suggestions on how I can make this any better, let me know in the comment section down below. That would be a great help. But this list, I will warn you, it might trigger some people and it might be controversial to others, but I will explain my reasoning the best I can. Whether you agree with it or not, that is fine. Power rankings are basically just an opinion. There is no factual way to diagram power rankings because they're basically just teams that normally how people do them is number one has a better chance of beating number two and so on like that. With me, it's I feel safer picking number one over two because of other concerns and stuff like that. We start with number 32, the Cleveland Browns at 0-3. Concerns: Myles Garrett hasn't played yet, I don't think. Their defense is even slower than I thought. The Colts don't really have an offensive line. They don't really have a good defense, but the Browns stuttered awfully against them. And Deshaun Kaiser is not adjusting to the NFL like I thought he would, whether it's a lack of receivers or a bad head coach, I do not know. But until they show any improvement or until Myles Garrett gets on the field, I have them at last. At 31, we have the Indianapolis Colts, who are close to last, even though they just came off a win. But their win was against the Browns. Their concerns for me: Andrew Luck. The timetable is around 2 to 3 weeks, but without an offensive line, how long will he be there? Will Jacoby Brissett make it to then? And if so, if not, will Scott Tolzien be a good enough backup? If Andrew Luck comes healthy and performs at the level that he usually does, the Colts will quickly shoot up the power rankings, believe me. Their defense is underperforming, and I don't believe they signed the right guys on free agency. Their offensive line, like I said, huge issue. That's why they're so far down. Now, at number 30, we have the New York Jets. I just realized it's in alphabetical order. That would have helped. With the New York Jets, reason why I have the Jets at 30 and not any lower is they did just come off a win against the Miami Dolphins, which everyone thought was a contender for the AFC East if the Patriots stumbled, or at least a wild card. But the Jets, with their solid run defense, they performed well against Jay Ajayi. I don't really think any of the Dolphins performed too well besides Devontae Parker. Jarvis Landry kind of didn't show. Then again, neither did the defense for the Dolphins. The Dolphins do get Lawrence Timmons back from his suspension that they suspended him for not showing up. Jets are not last or next to last because I believe out of all three of these teams, they have the most stable run defense. They have a good stable of young wide receivers. Granted, they have the most veteran quarterback right now. Their running back situation, I believe, is better than the Browns and the Colts, at least systematically. Frank Gore is getting a little old for me. So is Forte, but I believe Bilal Powell is a very underrated running back. I like Jamal Adams on the defense. I don't think the Colts really have a Jamal Adams. And the run defense, the Browns don't have a run defense like the Jets right now. Do I think the Jets get another win on the season? Probably not. Do I think the Jets could beat the Browns head to head? Probably not. But I still think Deshaun Kaiser needs a little bit of adjusting. And until then, I'm probably going to have the Jets ahead of him just slightly. At number 29, we have the San Francisco 49ers. Reasons for the 49ers being up here? You're really going to be in the yes, aren't you? That's stupid. San Francisco 49ers. Brian Hoyer threw a pick on the very first play against the Rams. Granted, the Rams do have a pretty decent defense. They have a good run defense. But Pierre Garçon and Carlos Hyde, even with those weapons, you would expect Brian Hoyer to come up a little bit. Their defense is solid, but it's facing some injuries, and their secondary is just questionable to me. It's not that the Niners have a bad defense, but Gurley, the way he destroyed them, it just it makes me feel like the run defense got exposed. And against teams like the Seahawks, who have a good defense, the Rams, who obviously just beat them, and the Cardinals. I don't know if the Niners can stack up. There's just too many concerns for me. I'm getting from now on though. There's going to be teams where I have a little bit more faith in. A little more faith. I'm not going to say a lot because at number 28 we have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals rank low on this list, even though they almost beat the Packers, mainly because of Andy Dalton's struggles. I don't know exactly where his mind's at. The fact that he's been playing so bad and waited until week 3 to throw his first touchdown concerns me. Their defense looks awful without Fontez Perfect, but I believe he comes back this week. Their flags are a little concerning. AJ Green's getting into it. Tyler Eifert is down. I don't know how long he's going to be hurt, and without such a reliable tight end, it's going to be hard. I believe they're going to rely more on Joe Mixon, but the reason why they're down here is because they have a major concern at the number 1 position, which is quarterback. And until last week, they looked like a team who was going to lose to the Cleveland Browns this coming week, which is scary. At number 27 in the power rankings, we have the New Orleans Saints. I know it seems kind of low for the Saints, but as you notice, it's going to be hard to distinguish between this team and the next 10 because there's legit concerns for both of them. If anything, the Saints, I believe they got the win because Cam Newton is not what he was in his MVP season. Do I think he'll come back? Obviously, I think he'll get better over time. But he's going to be without Greg Olsen and possibly without Kelvin Benjamin for an extended period of time. So how good was the performance by the Saints defense? I think it was muddied by the fact that they're facing a subpar Carolina offense with their best weapon being a rookie who still hasn't completely acclimated yet to the system. I don't think the system's acclimated to him either. Granted, you do have the offense with Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Melvin, or Mike Ingram, Peterson, and Kamara. They don't quite know how to use that three-headed monster yet, which does concern me a little bit. Willie Snead does come back from suspension, so they are kind of low, but I believe they'll improve. It's their defense, which, even though Anzalone is proving to be some capable, it's still just, I don't know, too much for me to be comfortable with compared to the teams ahead. Next, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, who I always call the Clippers when I do NFL videos and stuff like that. Reasons why they're so low: Melvin Gordon facing injury, I believe. They do have a decent offense. Phillip Rivers is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. They got Tyrell Williams. I believe Mike Williams, or I believe that's his name, from Clemson, the rookie. He might be coming back sooner, or he might be on IR. I do not know. But major reason why they're here is because they can't seem to stop anybody, and that includes themselves. A blocked field goal to lose game 1, a missed field goal to lose game 2, and facing off against the Chiefs against game 3, and losing Verrett in the secondary. I believe their division's too strong to overcome that, and I believe against teams like the Saints, the Chargers might get exposed. Granted, I believe the Chargers could expose the Saints offense just as equally, but against the teams ahead, I believe it would be tough to match up, especially if the kicker does not improve. At number 25, we have the New York Giants. Now, this is kind of low for me, and even I think it's kind of low, but my reasoning behind placing them this far is they are 0-3, so I didn't want to place them too high for the fact that they didn't win. They almost beat the Eagles. If it wasn't for a 61-yard field goal, probably would have went to overtime. So there's that. They got destroyed by the Cowboys, and to me, Eli's looked slower and slower, like mentally, not just physically, but mentally. It looks like he's reading things slower. Brandon Marshall hasn't adapted to the offense. I do like Evan Ingram and how he's been performing. Odell Beckham's been getting on point. Sterling Shepard getting on point. They're a team that's definitely on the rise. In fact, I believe if I would have started this power rankings after week 1 or week 2, they probably would have been around 28th. So they're climbing slowly. Their defense is good. They haven't been winning it for the Giants. And even when your offense is struggling like Eli, if you have a great enough defense, you should be able to win games like that. And they haven't been able to. And all the other teams above them have at least one win. How? I do not know, but they at least have one win. Next, we have the number 24th team, the Arizona Cardinals, and I regret putting them this high? A little bit. The Cardinals do worry me without David Johnson, but they do still have Larry Fitz, J.J. Nelson, and an offense like that. What worries me, though, and why they're so low compared to where they could be, is the way their underperforming defense has obviously underperformed, as I just stated. They have Chandler Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson, and a great set of defensive players like that, but they just haven't shown up. I can't explain it. I do not know why. Chris Johnson does look solid in his relief appearance of David Johnson, but until their defense shows up, I cannot put them any higher. Definitely can't put them in the top 20 compared to how the other teams have performed and stuff like that. At number 23, we have a team that's very near and dear in my hated heart, the Miami Dolphins. I despise them since the Chad Pennington days. As a team, they're not that bad. I believe they have a good roster on offense, a great roster on offense, and a good roster on defense. But when you lose to the Jets, you get knocked down quite a bit, especially how you get beat by the Jets. I know they didn't play in week 1, and they might be rusty, and they don't get a bye anymore. Unless they secure a first round bye, they don't get a bye for the rest of the year. And that concerns me right there, the fact that they will not get rest, and they just got whooped by the Jets badly. On offense, they have weapons like Devontae Parker, Jay Ajayi, Jarvis Landry. They have Jay Cutler at quarterback, which is a concern for me, even though he's played slightly better than I thought he would. Not much better, honestly, but slightly better. And you have players on defense like Timmons. You have a decent secondary. Sue anchoring that defensive line. If it wasn't for their wide receiver and running back, I might have them lower. But I feel like the Jets' loss might be an anomaly, so I can't. I want to so bad put them behind the Giants, but until they show that how they lost is who they are, I don't want to put them any lower. I don't think it'd be fair. On the other hand, the next team at 22, the Seattle Seahawks, I have them so low because Russell Wilson's playing really well. Doug Baldwin's playing decent. Jimmy Graham, I have not seen him. Someone put out a missing persons poster for Jimmy Graham, please. Major concern here is the Legion of Boom got torched by the Tennessee Titans running game. And I believe that's supposed to be one of their strengths is their defense because there's the Legion of Boom. But they got beat. They didn't get beat bad by Marcus Mariota, though. But with a young, inexperienced quarterback like Mariota, they should have been easily able to beat him. They should have been easily able to stop the Titans. But the Titans do have a good offensive line, so that might be a bit of an anomaly there. Seahawks are 1-2, which does hurt them in these rankings. And their major concern, the reason why they're down so low, is their offensive line. Their offensive line looks like it's held together by masking tape. And that's just awful. Other than that, if their running game can get going, if they can maybe piece together their offensive line, I don't know if Russell Wilson can even stay healthy at the rate he's being hit and pressured, and that scares me. Next, we have at 21, we have the Chicago Bears. Quite an impressive team compared to the previous weeks after their performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Granted, the Steelers' offense looks like a shell of its former self, but with Jordan Howard, I believe they have potential to be second place or to battle for maybe a wild card spot if they get on a hot streak. Their defense is not as terrible as everyone might think, but their offense, I don't think they have enough weapons at wide receiver, and their quarterback, Mike Glennon, too wildly inconsistent for me. I believe if it wasn't for Jordan Howard, they would be easily 0-3, and they would probably go 0-16. I believe Trubisky will actually start playing soon, probably, depending on how bad they do in the next upcoming weeks. But I reward them for their overtime win against a 2-0 Steelers team, so I bumped them up to 21st. And Jordan Howard might actually be the real deal. A lot of people thought that his rookie year was just an accident, and the fact that the Bears didn't really have anybody, that someone eventually had to do good for the Bears. But I think he might actually be a top 10 running back in the league. At 20, we finally cracked the top 20. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One reason, and one reason only, that they're on here. Granted, Doug Martin is coming back from suspension, I believe, so I believe they might be boosted soon. Mike Evans is performing well. Deshaun Jackson is okay. O.J. Howard not performing as well as I thought he would. Jameis Winston still struggling a little bit against good defenses. But it's their injuries on defense. Their major concern for me. Their defense is facing a lot of injuries. I believe I read an article about like 5 or 6 players either went into the locker room and came back or didn't come back during that game last week. And that concerns me because just like the Dolphins, they don't have a bye week unless they secure a first round bye. Until the Super Bowl, the week before the Super Bowl, if they make it, they will not have a bye week. Which scares the hell out of me for a defense that's that injured. I might have them higher, but unless that defense gets healthy, I can't put them top 15. I don't think I ever can. Then a little shocker here at 19, we have the Carolina Panthers. This week coming against a terrible Patriots defense. And yes, Patriots defense is terrible. It's put together like a bad puzzle. The Panthers are going to show me something. Either their offense can come together, or their offense is as bad as I feel like it is. You got Greg Olsen out for the year, I believe. Kelvin Benjamin almost sure that he's going to be out for an extended period of time. Their defense hasn't shown up quite like I thought they would. Cam Newton not playing that well at all. And I mean, he's playing booty cheeks. But I stopped from putting them down below the top 20 because they're going up against a Patriots defense that's not that well. So although their offense is a concern for me, I want to see if Christian McCaffrey and Cam Newton can pop off. So in regards to the matchup this week, I'm holding them there at 19. But if they face any more injuries, especially if Luke Kuechly gets injured like he usually does, because he's like the Rob Gronkowski of defense, he always gets injured, I might have to slide him down, down, and down. At number 18, another controversial. A lot of these picks going down are probably going to be controversial, at least a little bit. We have the 2-1 Redskins, who decimated the Oakland Raiders. Their defense completely destroyed the Oakland Raiders. Heart and soul. Amari Cooper and Crabtree combined for 2 catches. Derek Carr had possibly his worst game I have ever seen. His third worst QBR, I believe, overall. But just look-wise, that was the worst I have ever seen him. The Redskins, their offense is questionable. Thompson is a good running back, but I don't know if he can be a 3-down back. Their receivers are vulnerable. They did face a league worst Raiders defense from last year. Granted, the defensive line for the Raiders is good, but the offensive line for the Raiders let them down so bad. I think, though, that this was more of a bad game for the Raiders than it was a good game for the Redskins. Granted, it was a great game for the Redskins, and Josh Norman played his best football I've seen him play since he was on the Carolina Panthers. So credit to him. They actually, if I had to do power rankings last week, I think they jumped about 7 spots off of this win because they did beat a Super Bowl contender. Do I think they're contending yet? No, I still think they're fighting for third with the New York Giants in their own division, so until then I can't really place them too much higher. At number 17, we have the Houston Texans, who put up such a good fight against the New England Patriots. Granted, like I said before, with the Panthers, the Patriots have a terrible defense. They went from the league leading defense scoring wise last year to league worst at this point. Their offense is looking good. Deontay Foreman is looking like a good rookie. He could start pushing Lamar Miller for carries, if not for the fact that, hey, he's a rookie, so get the young guy some reps, some experience. Even if you have to trade Lamar Miller for something else to help you out, DeAndre Hopkins against Malcolm Butler almost looked pedestrian, which is concerning considering Malcolm Butler has struggled a lot. Ryan Griffin did look solid at tight end. I do have to give him that. Deshaun Watson looked amazing with how he ran. That silly interception does concern me. The Texans' defensive front looked amazing, but the Patriots were without, I believe, two of their starting offensive linemen or something like that. So this all depends on the maturation of Deshaun Watson. And it was only his second career start, so I will give him that. I expect the Texans to climb, and I'm going to get into the next few teams. I'm going to state which ones I think are going to decline, because just as I said, some of these teams are going to incline, like from here on out. There's going to be teams who fall back, and I believe the Texans are the ones that climb. I think right now they are third in their division, not just standing wise, but talent wise, or I believe they're second. I believe they're third in standings, but I believe they're second talent wise, and I believe they come back. At number 16, we have another team that I can't stand at all. I more so can't stand their owners more than anything. We have the Buffalo Bills with the possibly the most inept owners in the whole NFL. Now, I know that's rude saying it, but they mismanaged this team so bad that the Bills could have been a Super Bowl contender this year, but their owners. The Bills are 2-1, but they beat an anemic Jets team and an anemic Panthers, or an anemic, not an anemic, I guess I should say. I'm impressed that they beat the Broncos, but they lost to the Panthers. They did lose to a bad Panthers team, so I can't rate them too high. Granted, their performance against the Broncos does get them up to 16th. Do I think it was more Buffalo's defense? Not necessarily. I believe Trevor Siemian had a bad game, like Trevor Siemian does. There have been times so far in Trevor Siemian's career where even against bad defenses, he'll just have a bad game and he'll make bad defenses look good. I'm not saying the Buffalo Bills are a bad defense. I'm saying the Buffalo Bills are a good enough defense that they capitalized on a bad performance by a quarterback. Jamal Charles did prove to be a solid backup in the game. And I don't know, the Denver Broncos concern me a little bit. And that concern makes the Buffalo Bills victory look kind of less impressive. Granted, I do congratulate them, but I believe right now they're a middle of the pack team, which is why 16th is not bad whatsoever. Because all these teams from here on out are definitely wild card contenders, and I think the Bills can contend for a wild card. And at number 15, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if for not anything, I'm going to rate them this high for surprising the hell out of me. Not only did they break over 500 in London games and overall this year, they destroyed the Baltimore Ravens. Granted, the Ravens, I believe, all along had a weak offense. Their running backs are weak. They did lose their starter due for IR. I believe a statistic during the game said they have placed 15 people on IR at least. But a defense that came out, I believe, against the Browns and Bengals or something like that, and had 4 interceptions in 2 straight games, to get decimated by Blake Bortles that bad, to lose 44-7, for Joe Flacco to have no completions in the first quarter, and to have only 28 yards and 2 interceptions, for a quarterback to have negative fantasy points against a bad Jaguars team. Granted, the Jaguars' offense is bad, but I thought the Baltimore Ravens' defense was good enough to give Flacco more chances, and they gave him nothing to work with. Granted, Flacco gave them nothing to work with in return. So the Jaguars are good, but they beat a bad Tom Savage. And I was a proprietor for Tom Savage at the beginning of the year. They beat a bad Tom Savage and a terrible Joe Flacco. So I can't rate them too high, but I am impressed by their dominating performance. And I hope this is who they are. But I don't know who they are because they are comfortable in London. So it might just be a London side effect. So we'll see who they are. We'll see if they go up and down from middle of the pack. But if they continue playing like they did, they're going to rise quickly. At number 14, we have the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this I didn't feel too comfortable putting them here, mainly because their offense has been performing so well, but their offense performed so well against the 49ers. And their defense is really good. I believe they have a top 10 defense. I believe they might even have a top 10 offense. But the one concern that's holding me back is the maturation of Jared Goff. Granted, he does have new weapons like Sammy Watkins, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, but is that enough to help him mature fast enough? Their defense is playing out of their minds. I don't know if they can keep it up. They play in the tough NFC, and I believe their schedule only gets harder from here. Now, ever since the beginning of the year, I thought they were one of the 5 bottom teams because I thought Todd Gurley was just one of those guys that he didn't have a reliable quarterback, so they were gonna like 8-man box him and stop him all the time. But after last week, I don't know anymore. They have jumped every week since, and I can't really explain it. They're a climbing team, especially if they keep performing like they do. They might be a top 10 team come the next couple weeks. Number 13, we have the Ravens, who we just trashed. If they were, to me, a top 5 team just last week, because their defense came off of back-to-back games with 4 interceptions, but this last week concerns me way too much. They didn't score any points under Joe Flacco. It waited until Ryan Mallett led the team, and anybody who pays attention to football knows how bad Ryan Mallett is, how bad he was with Houston and everything. So that concerns me. Is this Joe Flacco, the Flacco we're going to see against a good defense or even a solid defense? Because if so, the Ravens are doomed. Will they keep dropping? I don't think so, but I believe their offense is going to have to put together something special because their defense can handle it. As long as their offense can score some points and keep the defense off the field and let them rest, I believe the defense can snap back. So I don't want to drop them too low. That's like an 8 position drop for me, which is pretty drastic. At number 12, we have another team that played booty cheeks, absolute booty cheeks this week. Oakland Raiders. I did say something before about Crabtree and Cooper having 1 catch each. Do I think that's the norm? No. Do I think Carr is going to have bad weeks like that all the time? No. I do so bad want the Raiders defense to step up. Not just Khalil Mack, because Khalil Mack shows up every damn week. But their secondary has to show up and stop somebody soon. The Raiders are 2-1, which is good. A lot of the teams in the league are actually 2-1, which is weird. I guess it's the fact that there's so many 0-3 teams. Anyway, Raiders came off a bad week. I had to drop them out of the top 10 for that. A lot of the teams that are dropped right out of the top 10 had such a bad week, I couldn't put them any higher. It's like punishment for being so bad. At number 11, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost to the Bears in overtime. Le'Veon Bell does not look like the Le'Veon Bell we all knew. Is this a result from him sitting out all of training camp and so on like that? I don't know. It's nice to see Antonio Brown score. It is. But if Big Ben keeps playing like this on the road, it's extremely concerning considering they're coming in. I think they have 2 road games coming up against Baltimore and Kansas City. And Steelers could, even though they started out 2-0, they are looking down the barrel at 2-3, which in the AFC is not where you want to be if you want to get home field advantage. Especially if they go to 2-3, that means the Chiefs are at least 4-1 and have a 2-game lead on the Steelers, and that's not good at all. And their run defense, I believe, is weak. It's nice to see T.J. Watt coming back, possibly. And I believe the loss of T.J. Watt hurts the Steelers quite a bit. Artie Burns isn't maturing like I thought he would. I hope he steps up quite a bit soon. But you'll see the teams ahead deserve to be ahead. So until Steelers show me something, they're not going to be top 10. And first team in the top 10 is the Minnesota Vikings. Now, one reason I have the Vikings in the top 10, their defense looks amazing. It almost looks like their defense cannot make a mistake. I'm kidding, obviously. Their defense can make a mistake, but the defense is solid. They play as an 11-man unit, which is something you don't see a lot nowadays. You see either elite secondary and iffy run defense, or you see an elite front seven and an iffy secondary. But I believe the Vikings are possibly the best all-around team on defense. Stephon Diggs, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. Do I believe he's top five? Maybe not, but he had a game of his life. And that's with Case Keenum throwing him the ball. And that's another reason why the Vikings are at 10, but not higher, is because Case Keenum is, to me, such an up and down quarterback. You never know exactly what you're going to get every week. Is this the Case Keenum we're going to see from now on? I don't think so. I do think he stays solid, which is why I have him at 10, but I don't think he plays his mind out like he did last week. They got Dalvin Cook, who has already proven to be a really good young running back, and they have a solid offensive line, solid defensive line. They have a solid team all around, definitely top 10. And you'll notice that it's going to start to get a lot more crowded as I hit the top 9, but there is a clear-cut number 1 team, so stay tuned for that. At number 9, we have the Tennessee Titans, who just came off a pretty, not a dominating win necessarily, but a statement win against the Seahawks. They beat the Legion of Boom. DeMarco Murray looked like the Dallas Cowboys' DeMarco Murray. Jake Conklin is proving to be an anchor of a really good offensive line. Their defense is looking extremely solid. Logan Ryan, I miss him as a Patriot. I miss him. I believe he was not necessarily the heart and soul of the defense, but I believe he was one of those pieces that you don't realize what you got until it's gone. But I'm happy for him in Tennessee. You got Marcus Mariota, an extremely, extremely talented young mobile quarterback who is coming off a broken leg, so I believe there's still room for improvement there. You have possibly the best stable of the best 1-2 punch of running backs in the league with DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. I don't think that's an understatement, mainly because of that offensive line. They have a great group of young wide receivers. Rashard Matthews, really good. Corey Davis, I think he's injured actually. But they have one of the better, most underrated tight ends I've ever seen in Delanie Walker. You probably never hear anybody say that Delanie Walker's a top 5 tight end, but I believe he's consistently been a top 5 tight end, even without Marcus Mariota in Tennessee, which is crazy to think about. At number 8, we have the Green Bay Packers. Now, like I said, a lot of these teams are lower for concern reasons. Packers could be a top 5 team, but to me, they let a listless, crippled Cincinnati Bengals team push them to overtime. One issue with that, the offensive line of the Packers is absolutely terrible. I believe the only quarterbacks that could make that offensive line work how Aaron Rodgers do is Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and maybe Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson plays behind an almost equally terrible offensive line already. They got Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, and Martellus Bennett, so I believe Martellus Bennett's still going to improve a little bit with Aaron Rodgers. Their defense is looking a lot better than I thought it would, so definitely a good team. They are 2-1 after a tough loss to the Falcons, but being pushed so hard by a bad Bengals team, one reason why I have them down at 8, but 8 is still good. If you think about 8, that's a division winner almost right there, which is good. I do expect them to win that division. Unless the Vikings show me something amazing, I do expect the Packers to win. At number 7, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm iffy at putting them here. They did struggle so badly a couple weeks ago, but they did bounce back a little bit against the Cardinals. Dez Bryant's off to a kind of a slow start, but still, you're going to see some improvement probably out of Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. I believe their offensive line is underperforming for as vaunted as they seem to be, and I believe their defense is stepping up quite a bit. Awuzie, whatever his name is was extremely valuable for where he was drafted. Do the Cowboys climb? They're going to have to beat some tougher opponents, I think, other than a struggling Giants team and a Cardinals team. before I rate them too much higher, because 7 is still really good, but these other teams have shown me something that the Cowboys haven't. At number 6, we have a team that lost due to a call in a runoff, the Detroit Lions, who are 2-1, but their only losses came to the undefeated Atlanta Falcons, just like the Packers. Their offense is looking amazing compared to last year. Golden Tate and Marvin Jones are looking good. Kenny Golladay is looking like an extremely, extremely gifted young wide receiver. Amir Abdullah is looking like the running back that no one thought he could be because everyone thought he was bad. The Lions defense is looking pretty dang good. Glover Quinn is performing better than I thought he would. So I think the Lions are definitely a top 6 team. Will they finish ahead of the Packers? I don't think so, but I didn't want to punish them too much for losing to the defending NFC champs, because that is a tough opponent. Plus the Packers almost lost to the Bengals, so almost lost to an 0-3 bad, terrible Bengals team who hadn't scored an offensive touchdown, or just barely losing to the defending NFC champs. I'm going to have to give the edge to barely losing to the NFC champs in that one. And at number 5, I didn't want to rate them so high after a terrible loss to the Buffalo Bills, but I didn't see it fitting putting anybody else here because of how they performed in the first 2 weeks, and I do believe that still counts. Their defense is amazing, even without... I can't think of his name right now. They have Chris Harris, Aqib Talib, one of the greatest secondaries in the league. Aqib Talib just recently had a 103-yard interception return for a touchdown, and they've been performing amazing, and Trevor Siemian has been performing amazing. I don't know if that game against the Bills was Siemian being Siemian or if it was just a bad game. I didn't want to punish him too much for it. I had him as the third-ranked team before, so I did drop him a couple. But that defense with Von Miller and them is just, to me, too good to demote quite yet, unless they lose again. If they lose again this coming week, I'm gonna have to start dropping them more because I'm just chalking it mostly up to an offensive line who struggled a little bit against a good Buffalo defense and a quarterback who just struggled, because quarterbacks do have bad weeks where they struggle. And at number 4, we have a team that's probably going to make a lot of people happy if anybody watches this, which I doubt anybody's watching at this point. Ha 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 ha. Philadelphia Eagles at number 4. Why? Carson Wentz has been proving to be amazing. Not amazing. He's been performing really well. Alshon Jeffrey doing really good. LeGarrette Blount not showing up too much, but he shows up when it counts. Wendell Smallwood, an underrated running back. Their defense has played amazing. Ronald Darby, I believe, is a very underrated addition. He's not an underrated player. He's just an underrated addition to the Eagles team. Their offensive line has looked really good. They got Zach Ertz and Brent Selleck, one of the better 1-2 punches of tight end combos in the league. Other than that, I believe they're one of the better overall teams in the league. But not as good overall as the number 1 team, which you are about to see. At number 3, as you can tell, we only have 3 teams left. At number 3, the New England Patriots. Now, I struggled putting them so high. I am a Patriots fan. That's not why I put them so high. They have the worst scoring defense in the league. But they have faced their weakness, I believe, 2 out of the first 3 weeks, which is a very mobile quarterback and a really good wide receiver at the same time. If you have a mobile quarterback and a very speedy wide receiver together, that is like the Patriots' number 1 kryptonite in history. Every time I watch a game with that, it's terrible. When I watched Cam Newton play us his rookie year or something like that, it made me cringe just watching that game because we couldn't tackle Cam Newton, and we struggled with that ever since. But with Tom Brady throwing 5 touchdown passes, and I believe Brandon Cooks with that toe tap, Hogan wide open, Gronk showing back up, they got a stable of running backs that look really good. Burkhead didn't play. Mike Gillislee looked okay, but was often stopped. The offensive line is a concern, but I believe people are healthy. I believe Solder maybe had a bad game. He's not been playing this year nearly like not nearly like he usually does. But their defense concerns me. Hightower should be coming back soon, which should bring some stability. I do believe they get a slight buffer from beating a good Texans team and facing a terrible Carolina team next week. If the Patriots lose to Carolina, I guarantee you will see them drop out of the top 8. If the Patriots lose and their defense continues to disappear, I can't rate them top 5. It's just a crime to keep doing that. At top 2, we have the remaining undefeated teams, but in what order? Obviously, at number 2, we have the Atlanta Falcons, the reigning NFC champs. Why do I have the Falcons at 2 and not 1? Falcons struggled to beat the Lions. They struggled to beat the Packers, and it just seems like every week they're struggling to beat somebody. They struggled to beat the Bears, for Christ's sakes. Do I think that's indicative of who they are? No. A team can struggle to beat everybody, go 19-0, and probably go down as the best team in the league, even though they struggled every week. Matt Ryan played like ass. Like, I'm not even going to censor it. He played like ass last week. 3 interceptions? Are you kidding me? 3 interceptions, Matt Ryan? You got Julio Jones on your team, and you're throwing 3 interceptions? You should have at least 3 touchdowns to him almost every week. Devontae Freeman, I believe he's going to start showing up. Their defense is too young and too talented to keep struggling as much as they have. I believe they still are adjusting to Sarkisian's offense over Shanahan's. So they're at number 2. They are undefeated. Will they climb at number 1? We'll see. It depends on if number 1 loses. As long as number 1 does not lose, I cannot demote them. Because the Kansas City Chiefs are playing out of their mind. Alex Smith is playing like the game manager who does more than just manage games. Tyreek Hill's playing solid. Their defense is looking really good. Major concern is Eric Berry's out for the year. Will they eventually be exposed? Maybe. And once they're exposed, will teams keep exposing them? Probably. If they are exposed in the first place. Tamba Ali, too good. And major reason why they're number 1 is Kareem Hunt has, I believe, 500 yards from scrimmage already in his first 3 games as a rookie. He had 170 rushing yards last week on, I believe, 17 carries. He's averaging 8 yards per carry as a rookie. He single-handedly destroyed the Patriots. He single-handedly destroyed the Chargers, and he single-handedly destroyed the other team too. This kid is possibly the best running back in the league, but I'm going to hold off on saying that quite yet because I don't know how teams are going to adjust to him. And once they start stacking boxes, if they have a good enough secondary to stop Tyreek Hill, we'll see how Alex Smith is adjusting to when he's asked to just go out and win the game himself. Anyway, guys, that's the whole power rankings, 32-1. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you are new. The list will keep morphing and morphing and morphing until the very last week and possibly into the postseason. I might do a postseason power rankings, but who knows. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.